Hey, tennis fans, you're listening to Match Point Canada, the official podcast of Tennis Canada. We're also members of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm Ben Lewis, joined alongside Mike McIntyre, and we are now halfway through action in Paris at Roland-Garros, halfway through the second major of the season, Mike, and plenty of storylines to cover at the French Open.
It's funny, it feels like we've almost completed 2 weeks worth of the tournament. I feel like just with all the rain delays and the long
Yeah.
matches and the crazy storylines too, not to mention a bit more of an extended stay for some of our Canadians than perhaps many tennis fans might have expected on the clay in Paris. So there's definitely some positives to take away there that we'll touch upon. We also want to thank our friends at Hotel X for sponsoring today's episode, and we will delve in a little bit more later in terms of some of the wonderful things they offer to tennis fans here in Toronto. But why don't we get started, Ben, I guess, on the women's side with some of the action there and one of the matches of the year, I guess, between world number one Iga Swiatek and former world number one Naomi Osaka.
Yeah, just incredible. And, leading in, I think, to Roland Garros, the discussion on the women's side is it's Iga versus the field. And that's obviously, not only her being world number one, her clay court pedigree. She won the two major tournaments in Madrid and Rome leading in. So you have to think she's the heavy favorite. I saw Osaka in that portion of her bracket as a potential second round opponent. I have to say, I didn't think Naomi was ready to put up this type of fight specifically on clay. She's just having this season back after having the birth of her first child. But here she is, like an absolutely incredible performance from her side. She led 5-2 in that third set. She had a match point at 5-3, a point away from, I think it would have been one of the upsets of the year. But to see four-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka play that incredibly well, to see Iga Swiatek problem solve her way out of it, that for me reaffirms that Naomi is going to be back stronger than ever on the hard courts, and Iga is still very much the player to beat on the clay courts.
It was a pleasant surprise, and this is no disrespect to Naomi Osaka and what she's done in her career, but given the amount of time she was away from the game, given the fact, as you mentioned, that clay's not her favorite surface or the one that she's had, the big success with at the majors, this was definitely an eyebrow raiser, and it seems like Iga has just gone on from there. I mean, Iga Swiatek was emotionally drained at the end of that match when you saw
Yeah.
her on the court and how she was reacting to the victory. So I think how she's rebounded from that one and just really been terrorizing opponents. That love, double bagel win over Potapova. My goodness, what a statement that was. And so sometimes we see after a really tough test that some of the players will just then use that as extra motivation, extra confidence. And yeah, I'm super excited now just to touch upon Osaka, who's no longer in the tournament, put up such a great fight. I'm so excited to see what she can bring now the rest of the season, especially as we head into the summer hard court swing where you would expect she's really going to be able to take things up a level. And I think Osaka still has so much upside and so much time in her career to get back to that top 10 level that we've seen before. And I'm excited to see what she can do, Cincinnati, Toronto, and then the US Open as well.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of Match Point Canada. If you'd like to follow along every week, give us a like below. Hit the subscribe button as we're trying to make 15,000 subs. Check out the first episode of Tennis Nation, recapping Canada's historic Davis Cup win from 2022. I was reminded, I think it was an early season question of yours. What was more likely, Rafael Nadal winning the French Open or Naomi Osaka winning the US Open? And I was kind of waffling back and forth on that one. And well, obviously we know the answer now, which is more likely with Rafael Nadal out of the tournament. But I think Naomi Osaka, and she even implied this in her press conference, she's kind of circled Flushing Meadows as like a big target where she feels like maybe by that time I'm going to be fully back in a major contender. So to put forth such a peak performance on the clay surface, not her preferred surface, she even singled out saying, I'd love to play Iga on my preferred surface. And we recall they had a great match years ago in Toronto on center court, and now how far they've come. Osaka with 4 Grand Slams, Iga with 4 Grand Slams, and the favorite here in Paris to maybe win her 5th overall.
And I love what Osaka brings to the women's game as well. I mean, you put her back in the mix once she's really clicking, and look out because we've got these four players in Swiatek, Sabalenka, Rybakina, and Coco Gauff who've been just tremendous over the last year or two. And now you put Osaka back in there as well, and it's like, wow, how much top level talent have we got in the women's game? And it's just a very exciting time. And I think for tennis fans who are in Toronto or who can get to Toronto this summer for the National Bank Open, again, I feel like each time the women come back here, the tour has just gotten that much stronger from 2 years previous. And the
Yep.
same holds true for me in 2024. There's nowhere else I'd want to be in August than the NBO in Toronto with that field.
Yeah, definitely. And look, Iga, as you said, charging into the quarterfinals, she lost 10 total points to Anastasia Potapova in that fourth round match, which is,
That's insane.
it's incredible. I think Potapova maybe won two return points through that's through two full sets, which is just staggering. You look in the other half of the draw, and really it is like the top players taking care of business. And Arina Sabalenka, she looked incredible in her match against Emma Navarro, straight sets victory to go into the quarterfinals. 36 winners in that match and I believe 6-2, 6-3 score line. So she's looking fantastic. I saw a graphic of the speed of her ball. She's hitting 125 miles per hour average on those baseline strokes, which is a higher speed than Yannick Sinner's shots. So the power from the baseline of Sabalenka, and I talked a bit about her skill set, obviously, with Steve Weisman leading in. Like this is probably the strongest I think she has maybe looked on clay. And you have to think she could be right there.
Sabalenka is one of those players, if you've seen her play or practice live, that she just scares the living, you know what, out of you if you're standing courtside. And she's one of those players as well that if you're watching close by, you cannot like divert your attention for even a moment, even in practice. Because if you get smacked by one of those balls, it's lights out. It's
Yeah.
just so impressive. And as we look at as we're recording now, we're on the cusp of the quarterfinals in both the women's and the men's draws. Just to be transparent with where we're at right now. And when I look at those quarterfinals, to me, three of them seem, I don't want to say heavily favored, but they seem more one-sided than the other.
Yeah.
And I don't know about how you feel, which one you would say seems the closest out of those four encounters.
Well, it has to be, I think, for me, Coco Gauff against Ons Jabeur.
Same.
Definitely, yeah. On paper, I think this is a very tight matchup. Coco Gauff has been to a French Open final. She's obviously played the better of the two tennis dating back the past several months, specifically, obviously, that hard court season, which she had last year, which was incredible. And we saw her just take off, winning in Washington, huge title in Cincinnati, and then of course the breakthrough major at the U.S. Open. And Ons Jabeur, we know, has been so close to a major, two runner-up finishes at Wimbledon. She did lose in the U.S. Open final as well to Iga Swiatek, and I feel like she's finally got her footing again. Really tough start to the season, as we know, and she was dealing with a knee injury. I think 2-6 out of the gates, and now she looks a lot better. I feel like this is the best I've seen her play probably since Wimbledon last year. And she's just so crafty and clever on the court. And I love these types of matchups, like the sheer athleticism and speed of Coco Gauff, that dangerous two-handed backhand, and then the mix of variety and skills and great hands of Ons Jabeur. I think that's going to be a great match.
It really seems like Ons is back, as you mentioned, kind of for a while they're dealing with a few things. And even the last time that her and Coco Gauff played, which was at the WTA finals last year, and Coco just smoked her 6-love, 6-1. But again, Ons, I don't think was, nearly at her best at that point in
Yep.
time, despite qualifying for the top eight in the world at the end of the year for that event. Um, yeah, I'm excited for this one. Goff leads 4-2 their head to head. I would put her as the favorite, but I think it is going to be a real close one. It's got three sets to me written all over it. And regardless what happens for Ons Jabeur, I like the fact that she's getting back into form just ahead of the grass court season, because we all know what she's capable of doing there. And she's such a sentimental pick, I think, when Wimbledon rolls around. And I'm getting those vibes of like Yana Novotná back in the 1990s, who
Hmm.
lost time and time again. It seemed like, in that final matchup, or Goran Ivanisevic, who had been there time and time again, but couldn't quite do it. And both of those players, luckily, were able to get their sort of Cinderella finish at Wimbledon. We'd love to see it for Ons Jabeur as well. She's come so close, and she's just such a nice person too. So you can't help but root for her out there, I think.
Yeah, and a player we kind of forgot about, I would say, who's sort of definitely fallen under the radar, considering she won Wimbledon last year, is Marketa Vondrousova, who is now back in a quarterfinal of the French Open. Iga Swiatek's going to be a heavy favorite in that match, but it's nice at least to see Vondrousova playing good tennis again. And I think she's been dealing with some injuries and issues and a major dip in form, but she's right there. And
And don't forget, right, that
yeah,
Vondrousova made the French Open final a few years ago.
that's right.
And I remember that year, I don't often put any money down on tennis. I got to say, A, I don't have it, and B, my
Yeah,
picks are often wrong. But that year ahead of the tournament, I picked her. I put in like $5 and picked her to win it, and she went all the way to the finals. And I forget what I would have won if she had won it. It would have been a nice little payday. But
yeah,
yeah, I always think back to that run, which was quite unexpected at the time. And then I got to say, like Wimbledon was unexpected last summer too, because she hadn't really been, in the headlines as much in recent years. But a very dangerous player. Although Iga leads that head-to-head 3-0, and each of those wins, she's doled out a bagel or a breadstick to Vondrousova. So I think the way Iga's playing right now, it's probably too big of an ask. And you look at Rybakina and
yeah.
Sabalenka, like all the top players are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing right now. I do want to say that Mira Andreeva to me is such an exciting player in terms of what she's going to do in
Yep.
the future in her career, even though I think Sabalenka with that power at this stage is also again the heavy favorite in that one. But really excited about this young player. She's only, I think, just turned 17 years old. So much ahead of her, and quietly I feel like she's already accomplished quite a bit in her professional career.
Yeah, I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back for this one because I actually got a dark horse pick right here with our Tennis Canada picks of a dark horse sort of outside the top 10 to do damage, and I circled Mira Andreeva, and what a run she's had. I think it really got going kind of second round. She beat Azarenka in a three-set battle, 7-5 in the third, and she's gotten stronger since. I mean, beating the American Stern 6-2, 6-1. And then playing against the French crowd, Gracheva, who's a French woman, she beat her in straight sets, and that was a tough atmosphere. And for her to have that poise and maturity, as you said, yeah, I think she turned 17 just end of April. So already into a quarterfinal to be getting these experiences at this age. I mean, maybe it's a little bit reminiscent of the type of results we were seeing from Coco Gauff at maybe even a younger age. So we got to get used to these like young phenoms breaking through at such an early age, and let's hope they get stronger and stronger, which I'm sure that'll be the case with Andreeva.
And if we go from young phenoms to older legends, if you will, and transition over to the men's game right now, Novak Djokovic, I mean, he is just making it so difficult on his fans right now. Not only the length of the matches, how late these matches are going, but just the it seems like he's out of it, down 2 sets to 1, both against Musetti and in his more recent one against Cerundolo. And he's found a way to do it. Thank goodness it's best of 5 set, which is, I think, one of the benefits and exciting parts of the majors for the men. But he's not taking the easy route to get there, is he?
No, it's staggering what I think he's done the past couple of matches at his age of 37. And we should start with the win over Musetti because record-setting win in the sense that it finished at 3:06 a.m. Paris time, which is just ridiculous to think of that this match could be played into the wee early hours of the morning, having these competitors have to stay out there and battle and grind. And it gets cold at night in Paris. Like it's chilly. You can see all the fans bundled up. They have their jackets on, and these guys are fighting through it. And Djokovic, as we've seen before, looked like he was down and out, down 2 sets to 1. It's on serve in the fourth, but he seems to be struggling physically. He looks exhausted. Musetti is redlining, playing this amazing tennis, and a gear gets switched. And we've seen Nole do that time and time again. He's the best uh, player of all time in this best of five format without a doubt, and knows that time management so well. Battles through Musetti, rolls over in that fifth set 6-love, and then again, Francisco Cerundolo even closer to losing this one. Down not only down 2 sets to 1, but down a live break in that fourth set. Cerundolo up 4-3 with the break. Can't hold. Djokovic gets that break back, gets all the momentum, the mental fortitude to come through and then win that fifth set 6-3. Just staggering. And I should say, actually, with that win, he's now the all-time leader in Grand Slam match wins, surpassing Roger Federer 370, which is unbelievable.
And for Djokovic, I mean, there was a lot on the line in that match against Musetti. So the number one ranking
Yeah.
was, would have transitioned to Jannik Sinner if Djokovic had lost there. as well. Gosh, what else was it? Oh yeah, this interesting stat I read that it would have been the earliest in a slam, or the first time in a slam that one of the members of the big three didn't make the fourth round, going back to 2004, which
Wow.
is like a 20-year stretch. Just again speaking to their incredible consistency and talent, and yet he managed to stay alive. And I mean, Musetti's had a couple of close ones against him where he was leading. I believe one of them was at the French in previous years. And so, but maybe there was something in his mind where he's like, Djokovic, I haven't been able to beat him in this, tournament before here. Is he going to do it again to me? And sure enough, he did. And in what fashion in that fifth set? But I just want to talk for a moment about these late night matches. Like, is this good for tennis? Is this good for the sport? And what alternatives do we have? Like, what other sport has this? And the only one I could really think of was, continuous overtime, sudden death overtime in NHL playoffs. And
Yeah.
every now and then you get one that goes three or four overtimes and does go into the wee hours of the morning as well. But I mean, who can stay up that long, right? You lose TV viewers. Who can stay in the stands that long? You don't have nearly as many players or fans sticking around to watch that live, even though they bought the tickets. If you're at one of these matches with your kids, forget it. They've passed out long ago. So what's the benefit of doing it? At some point, should they just say, we're not going to start this match that could possibly go so late, but then you're denying fans the chance to, get into at least part of it? Or do you say there's a hard cap and hey, at 1 in the morning, that's it. Nobody plays past that. Although then you're giving an advantage to one of the two players, probably the player who seems to be letting it slide a little bit and not playing their best game. They get a reprieve. They get to talk to their coaches and go back and try again the next day. So there's no
Yeah.
perfect answer. I don't know what to do, but playing until 3 in the morning doesn't seem like it's the right one to me.
No, and look, we were seeing this issue in Australia as well. Specifically Daniil Medvedev playing like incredibly long five setters, which are running into the early hours of the morning. I think he had one match where he was recovering, probably said he went to bed at 5:30 a.m., which isn't reasonable. I mean, they do have the day off. There's that benefit of the 2 week slam format, but look, the TV broadcasters, they're buying out the rights to have these night matches start at a set time. So it's like they're dictating that. And I think obviously what's extending this is the fact that we have a best of five format on the men's side. It seems insane to me that you'd ever run back to back best of five matches because there's always that chance that you could be running, yeah, till 3 a.m., which was the case here. So obviously, I really think the women's matches need more exposure in the night slot. And if you could push it back an hour and maybe you're leading with a two of three, best two of three match, how long could it feasibly go? I suppose it could go past 3 hours. That can happen. But at least you're pulling back a little bit of time. I think it's completely unreasonable to have back to back men's matches in the best of five format in the night session.
And I mean, it sucks for some of us. Like I got to say, I got to get up in the morning and work. I got kids. I got to get up in the morning and get to school. Like I can't be a zombie and just tell them, "Hey, kids, today you're just gonna do it yourselves." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
and look, when we're in our time zone here, we see it at the U.S. Open sometimes when some of those night sessions run crazy, crazy late. I think I remember a match between Fabio Fognini and Nadal years ago, which was wrapping up like 2:30, 3 a.m. So it unfortunately happens. Surely there's a way around it, you would think.
I'm just getting too old for this. You know what, right? So
Yeah, well, anyway, it's obviously a problem that's been discussed, and somehow we don't have a solution in sight. As I mentioned, Rafa, we should talk about Rafael Nadal, of course, and whether or not this was his final ever performance at Roland-Garros, we actually don't know. He left the door open on that, and I think one of the reasons he did leave the door open, I wouldn't say left it hanging wide open, is that he looked pretty good. Despite the fact that he had to play world number four Sasha Zverev in the first match, which is, really one of the worst possible draws he could have asked for. He played a very competitive three-set match, coming out on a losing end, but I felt like his level, and I think Benoit Paire tweeted this, his level was good enough to beat, he felt, 95% of the players in the field, depending on the draw he got. So I thought Rafa had a great showing in the second set. He was up a break serving for it at 5-3. He was competitive. His forehand had juice on it. He was serving way better. He was moving better. Now you have to think he's going to try and save all his energy for the Olympics, which are going to be played on the very same courts.
Yeah, I think he made comments that grass was probably going to be unlikely, that it didn't make
Yeah.
sense to him. And I think any of us watching from a distance could see that coming, which is too bad in one sense, because he's had some of the most incredible results of his career at Wimbledon, some of the most surprising or unexpected, certainly when he was younger,
Yes.
results at Wimbledon, when people still, mistakenly felt he was a clay court player, or perhaps clay court, hard court, but not didn't yet have it on the grass. I mean, I'd love to see him back there rocking the whites, playing on the grass of the All England club. Um, I remember when he kind of put to bed Andre Agassi's career at Wimbledon in Andre's last match there. And, at least Andre had that moment. That was back in, I think, 2006, I want to say. And he was dealing with sciatic issues and stuff like that. And injuries gets most of them at some point, right? And we see that Nadal is being hampered by that now too. But I guess, yeah, when your ultimate goal is to, where can I have still maybe one last hurrah, you got to be smart about it. And for him, that's to stick with the clay and stay with, the surface that you're going to be playing on for the Olympics in July. Um, I was kind of happy to hear that he's opened the door to potentially going beyond this year. I'm in no rush. I think most people are in no
Hmm.
rush to see him off, but I don't want to see him come back and like Agassi in his last year, he took a sharp decline from 2005 to 2006. 2005, Agassi's playing Federer in the finals of the US Open. 2006, he's limping off the court after, playing against Benjamin Becker. So I'd like Rafa to go out with his head held up high. If he can have a great run at the Olympics and, maybe some success in the hard court swing or find his game there, that's great. But it's tough for them. You can tell it's tough for him to make that decision and how hard it is because of how much he still loves the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what boils down to it, his passion and love for the game. And I'm sure for him, it must just feel frustrating at times because I've heard him say before he feels still like his touch on the ball and his feel for hitting a tennis ball is still so great. So to be always sort of held back by these numerous physical issues. And as we have this conversation just a day ago, he celebrated his birthday, so he's now 38 years old. And I mean, I think if this was a conversation we were having in tennis 20 years ago, playing till you're 38 was just something unheard of. And playing to that, or even, playing close to that age and having success was unheard of. So the fact that we're talking about a now 38-year-old Rafa who is still on the tour, a 37-year-old Novak Djokovic who won three major titles last season and is obviously a contender to win this year's French Open, along with Wimbledon and US Open, is completely unheard of. It shows you the development of sports science and how far we've come to lengthen these careers of tennis players, which is obviously a great thing. But as you said, like I would love to see him go out on his own terms, and that so often doesn't happen and is not the case with a lot of these athletes.
Now there's other players still left in the draw, so we should definitely focus on them on the men's side. And Djokovic is going to have at the moment, a tough one against I think Casper Ruud, which is a rematch of last year's final.
Yep.
Djokovic leads that head-to-head 5-1, but did lose this year to Ruud on clay, albeit in a best-of-3 match. So that one's going to be very interesting. I would give Ruud, I think, the advantage in this one, to be perfectly honest, given how electric he's been on the surface this year, how he's been to the final twice before. So he's definitely, already dialed in to play big pressure matches there. And how Djokovic has just spent so much time left on the court, that how much left could there be there for him to give?
He spent over 10 hours the past two matches, and I think he said he was dealing with a knee issue. Looks like he may have twisted his knee a little bit in that match against Cerundolo, or something that was already nagging to begin with. So if there is a time for Casper Ruud to feast on an opportunity to beat Djokovic at a Grand Slam, I mean, this is his best chance yet, without a doubt. And I'm sure he has to take some confidence that he has a win over him now. It was very one-sided. I think the final last year in the French Open, and I felt then that probably Casper didn't have much belief that he could beat Djokovic in the final. So something that may have changed for Casper, who is a three-time major finalist, hasn't broken through and won a title. But you have to think if you're shortlisting the contenders right now on the men's side, he's one of them.
Yes, and if you look at the other contenders that we've got in there, you got Sinner, who's playing some terrific ball right now. So I think injury concerns are behind him. He
Yeah.
leads head to head 3-1 against Dimitrov, who he'll play. Great result for Dimitrov. I feel like we're saying this all the time over the last year. He's just having some fantastic stuff at this stage of his career, which you like to see. Sasha Zverev, despite distractions off the court that we're not going to touch. I think you're already quite aware of those, but his clay court game has been right on this spring. He's going up against Alex Dimmenauer, leads 7-2 in the head-to-head, but they've only played one of those matches on clay. And boy, Dimmenauer is playing some fantastic tennis. And I like that story of the kid who's been cheering him on court side that he's really
Amazing.
taken to and
Yeah.
drawing his strength from that. And you love to see that. And you love to see young tennis fans who are, too often we kind of just think of the adults watching the matches. But man, when you're a kid, you love watching this stuff. And some of my best tennis memories are from when I was a kid, and that hooks you on the sport. And so it's just fantastic to see the passion that the youngsters have for the sport today as well. And the final quarterfinal, Alcaraz against Tsitsipas, which, is just mouthwatering when you think about it, despite the span you're leading their head-to-head 5-0. This is a rematch of the quarterfinals from last year. And Alcaraz to me just looks the favorite to me among the eight men that are left here. And yet Tsitsipas, boy, he's played some great matches at the French over the years. Also a terrific clay court player. I'm really looking forward to seeing this one too between these two greats.
Yeah, Alcaraz in press sounded so confident, just going into the quarterfinals and just with the tennis he's playing. We'll get to our Canadian results, which I'm sure a few listeners want to hear about. But I think the fact that Alcaraz didn't necessarily come into the French Open here with a world of form because he got that forearm injury, he hadn't won a title, but you felt like when he was healthy, we saw him in Indian Wells, he was back to his very best. And on that slower hard court surface, he looks so dominant, and the clay, I think, is even more comfortable for his game. So I've always kind of felt clay is his very best surface. So it's incredible, really, that he's already won Wimbledon, which was stunning last season. He's already won the U.S. Open. Maybe it's a little bit surprising that he hasn't won the French Open. So I think there is a reason that he's the betting favorite. He had a really dominant first week. I like his chances against Stefano Tsitsipas, and I'd love to see a rematch with Jannik Sinner because they've had so many great battles over already the first couple of years of their career. And to me, that feels like the rivalry of the future, whether it's like I don't know if it's going to be like a Fed Nadal rivalry or a Nadal Djokovic rivalry, but it feels like those two are going to be trading off titles and meeting in finals constantly for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing I like about Alcaraz is just he's a student of the game and he has so much respect for the legends of the game. And you saw that as he was sitting courtside watching Nadal's potentially last match at Roland-Garros. And not just watching, but like the facial expressions, like he was into it, right? And
Yeah.
there's added incentive for him to see Nadal continue because the two of them very well might be doubles partners, I think is the plan at the Olympic Games. But I just like the fact that you can tell that he loves the game and he appreciates what those before him, the legends before him have done.
Yeah, I know we wanted to touch on Andrey Rublev before we get to the Canadian tennis, and he was in my top 10 list of contenders, obviously, at this tournament. I think he was in my top eight, frankly. And I know I see a lot of this on social media and Reddit of like frustration of watching this guy beat himself up mentally on the court. It's really difficult. He's so talented. He's been to 9 Grand Slam quarterfinals. He has countless ATP 500 titles. He's won a Masters 1000. And you see just these explosions of rage, all kind of directed inward. And it's been an ongoing theme, I think, really particularly this season. It's kind of painful to watch sometimes. And he exited third round to Arnaldi. We saw a lot of it there.
Torture. It just he seems absolutely tortured and it's not fun to watch. Like, look, sometimes a player will smash a racket or have a little breakdown, and part of you is amused by it, and part of you can relate to it, and part of you gets out some of your own frustrations, maybe in proxy by watching them. But there's no enjoyment watching him have a meltdown like this. It truly is agonizing to see what he's going through. And, we've talked over the past years, mental timeout, the Tennis Canada initiative, and
Yep.
nice things that happen at the NBO where the fans can write a positivity message to the players. And I really hope that Rublev finds what he needs to sort of find a little bit more inner peace while he's plying his trade on the court, because I just don't think it's sustainable. It just doesn't seem like it's you can't keep going like that. I just feel like it's not something that he's going to be able to do. And so I hope that there's some voices in his camp or in his corner that can maybe suggest some things to him. And I don't know if it's maturing because he seems like a pretty mature guy off the court, to be perfectly honest, and he seems like a really nice guy. We've spoken to him before on Match Point Canada, a likable guy. But when he gets out there, it just he's got to find a more positive way to handle the inner conflict, I guess.
Yeah, that's well said. Before we get to our Canadian performances, another thank you to Hotel X. Looking for the perfect urban getaway for your next family vacation? Look no further than Hotel X Toronto, the city's premier urban resort. With its state-of-the-art fitness facility, 10XTO, and 4 indoor tennis courts, there's something for everyone in the family. That's not all Hotel X has to offer. With luxurious amenities from the rooftop pool to the award-winning Guerlain Spa, from the 250-seat cinema to the 3-level sky bar, there is so much to see and do all under one roof. Whether you're visiting Toronto for business or pleasure, Hotel X is the perfect choice for families and individuals alike. Book your stay today at Toronto's only urban resort, Hotel X Toronto. Experience the extraordinary. Canadian performances. First time ever we've had 4 players reach the third round in singles. So you take that factor and you have to say a very successful French Open for Canada. I still have a feeling a lot of fans wanted more.
Yeah, and a lot of media members wanted more too, including yours truly, because yeah, it got me excited, right? It was so great to see the four of them having that success through the early rounds. It exceeded our expectations, but I think it did leave us wanting, it's such a tease to get close to the second week, but not get there. And you were kind of hoping, hey, maybe one of them will at least be able to get in there deep to a quarterfinal or perhaps better. I gotta say, of the four of them, the four young Canadian talents in singles, I was so happy to see Bianca Andreescu's results, and it was just incredible to me to see that she was able to win those matches and take out the 23rd seed Kalinskaya before falling to Paolini in three. Someone who's been terrific on the clay courts. So
Yep.
for me, the fact that she was away for 9 months and was able to come back in her first event, being a major, and have that result just speaks to that talent and what she's capable of doing when she's healthy. And my goodness, look out if she can stay fit throughout the summer, because I think that she's going to have something to really say on the court before this season's done.
Yeah, I know. We'll get to Felix Auger-Aliassime. I know he technically had the deepest run of any Canadian in singles, but for me, Bianca Andreescu is the highlight out of the four for that very reason. The fact that she was out of competition for more than 9 months. This is her first tournament of 2024, and you're thrown into the fire already playing Grand Slam tennis. It's not like she was working her way back with a 125K or something lower level. And that was initially the plan. She was supposed to play in Rabat, Morocco at a smaller tournament. She wasn't quite ready for that tune-up tournament. So to go in at the French Open for her first tournament of the year, gets a big win to start over Sarah Sorribes Tormo, who's an incredibly experienced, tough out always. She competes incredibly well. And then, yeah, beating a top 25 player in Anna Kalinskaya, a match that went deep into the third set. She kept her composure. Those two are apparently good friends as well. They had a great embrace at the net. Bianca, we saw the fire, the passion that I think so many Canadian tennis fans have fallen in love with. And then no shame in losing to Jasmine Paolini, who's having a career year inside the top 15 and into the quarterfinals right now. Um, I suppose that match against Paolini, it was a reminder for me. I think Bianca's serve is still a work in progress. Paolini was feasting on it the whole match. I think Bianca only won 47% of points on her serve. So for her to even dig out a set with those numbers is impressive.
Impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be a work in progress for her, but she wrote a really positive message on social media after just about the experience. So she seems in great spirits. She's healthy, gets 2 big wins.
And anyone who hasn't listened to maybe our recent episodes, please go back a couple weeks, because Ben and I had the pleasure of talking with Bianca right before Roland-Garros, and there's some really great stuff in there about what she's gone through and what she's looking forward to the rest of this year.
Yeah, definitely. Felix Auger-Aliassime, I should say, round of 16, which matches his best ever result at the French Open. Nice wins over Nishioka, the German player Squire, and a dominant win over Ben Shelton, who kind of faded away in the third set. Carlos Alcaraz completely overwhelmed him, though, in that round of 16 match, 6-3, 6-3, 6-1. So glass half full, Felix is making the round of 16 of slams again. And then glass half empty, I suppose, is Carlitos looks that much better. I don't know how you view it.
Well, I think Carlos is going to make a lot of people look that way, probably,
Possibly.
So I think keep that in mind. But, the fact that Felix is, on the cusp of the top 20 again, the fact that he made the finals in Madrid, I think there's a lot of positive to take out of this clay court season. And Felix is really an all-court player, so he's going to be, in the mix, I believe, to crack the second week at Wimbledon.
Yep.
Certainly on the hard courts this summer, and then just wait for the indoor stuff in the fall, which is his bread and butter as well. I think there's a lot of good things happening for Felix right now, and Denis Shapovalov, I think he could take a lot of positives out of this too. He had a great second round win against American Francis Tiafoe. Again, we haven't seen the consistency from Shapo, but to get where he did, I think in this slam on clay, I'll take that. And he's ready to switch it over to the grass court. He's playing tomorrow,
Yeah.
Tuesday, as we're recording on Monday, already on the grass, and looking forward to what he can do at Wimbledon, where again, with his game and his explosive arsenal of weapons, I think he's going to be a real threat as well there.
Yeah, I like that he's not taking any time off and diving right into the grass court season. He's eager to just keep playing tournaments. He definitely belongs back in the top 100, which is still a quest of his. He uses protected ranking here, but needs to build more ranking points for missing so much time dated back to last year. Leylah Annie Fernandez, I thought a very good tournament. Couple dominant wins to start. She beats the French woman Ponche. She beats Wang Zhu in straight sets, and then another tough one to Ons Jabeur, who she just hasn't solved yet in her career. And we just talked about this earlier. I think Jabeur is playing some really, really good tennis right now. But if you consider maybe the struggles in Leylah's lead up on the clay, I thought third round here with a couple wins was a positive step.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's still alive in women's doubles, playing with sort of makeshift partner Aaron Routliffe.
Yeah.
They're into the third round as we speak. They've only played one tournament together, really. They made the semifinals of Strasbourg in their previous event. Aaron Routliffe ranks so high in doubles right now and just waiting for Gabby Dabrowski to get healthy again, hopefully on the grass to reunite. But great to see Leylah doing that. Speaks to her love of the game and desire to want to keep improving too.
Yeah, as we wrap up, I will mention congrats to Liam Draxel and Benjamin Seguin, the Canadians, picking up a doubles title at the Little Rock Challenger in Arkansas. Guys, that's all from us at Matchpoint Canada. We will talk to you next time.